Hey, welcome back to Engineer's Workshop. So we got that lock knob basically finished. That's going to help lock the upper arm of the radial arm saw. And really the next steps on that is to start cleaning up the bore where it was welded and enable it to grip that slug that is the rotation element for the traveling arm. But before we do that, I've been accumulating a few tools on and off, and I figured it'd be a good time to do a relatively brief new tools video. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that now, show you a few of the new to me things and new things that have come into the shop in the last couple of months. So first item we've got to look at is a fly cutter that I bought from Cody Schmidt, Hidden World Forge. Nice and beefy. But since we want to play with that a little bit, I got to do some modifications to get that running in my K&T. Let's take a look at a couple other items first, and we'll come back to that at the end of the video. Now, this one was an antique store find. I'm not sure if it's a Brown & Sharp or a Starrett, but it's a nice height gauge. I mean, this kind of like must have sat on a shelf or in someone's drawer for about 50 years to get you know, this crusty, but it's got a really old style last word indicator. I think it's only one directional. The clamp is free. I got this thing almost exclusively for the little clamp here because I haven't been able to find those really by themselves. And it is pretty crusty. I haven't tried to move this yet. The backside is even worse, but with a little soaking in evaporust and light wire wheel, I can probably get it you know, back to in decent condition. Also, I think the blade is actually tweaked back a little bit. I think it must have taken a hit or a bump at some point. You know, I'm not going to use this on the granite table. I'll probably clean this up and just call it, you know, a mill table reference stand, something to keep on the mill table and check the heights of surfaces as I'm machining or something like that. But you know, it was basically complete, and I just thought it was pretty neat. Price was right, so I decided to grab it. Another tool new to me, this is a brand new one, this is a Greenlee L97. And this little level is basically for electricians to use. It has 3 strong magnets that will let it adhere to flat surfaces, and it's got a groove in it so that it can attach to conduit. And this particular one has a laser to extend and project the straight run of the conduit to either, if you got a wall and you're going to be cutting holes in it, you know, it'll tell you where your conduit is going to pierce that wall. It tells you that the laser line is a 1/2 inch off the base. Also tells you that the laser line is a 1/2 inch off of the inside of the conduit wall. Now, for those of you who are lazy and don't want to deburr your conduit, for 1 inch conduit and above, that little notch in there will let that burr sit in the notch, and it will still register on the true surface of the conduit. And it will accept up, you know, down to 3/4 inch conduit if you have cleaned off the burr, and it can project essentially the center line of the conduit with the laser line. It has 4 levels for horizontal, vertical, 45, and 30 degrees. If you're doing jogs in your conduit, that'll help you get them all looking nice and pretty. So really nice little tool. The only complaint I have about it is it uses end cells, which are not always readily available. I went on to Amazon and bought like a pack of 8. That's probably about the only tool I have that uses them, so I've got plenty of them, but this is, you know, going to come real in handy for me running conduit across the building and keeping the run straight and parallel and all that good stuff. So nice little tool to have. I mean, it was like, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 bucks, but well worth it in my opinion. And this is the last item I wanted to show you, and that gives it away. This was kind of an impulse buy. and I don't know a whole lot about them other than they go on the tool post and they do some light duty grinding for you. This has been repainted, even the box has been repainted, and it did not come with all of its accessories. It does come with 2 additional pulleys, no belt, and I do have to get a belt for it. I also don't know which model this is. That's something that I'm going to have to also figure out. But the spindle seems to be pretty free. I know the motor works. Spins like mad, so these were high RPM motors. And I mean, it's in basically good condition. Price was right, so we'll have fun trying this out one day, but not today, not in this video. So I'm just going to box this up, keep it clean for now. Everything is really well oiled. Fun toy for another day. I've been dealing with this kind of a janky setup, this old Jacobs 34B. I think it's a 1/2-inch chuck, which had a number 1 Morse, and at 45/64 thread. Number 1 Morse, 1 to 2 adapter, 2 to 3 adapter. I got it running truer, but I wanted to get something straighter and a little bit more robust. And so I ended up getting this off eBay. And this is a Jacobs ball bearing super chuck number 18. So this is a 1/8 to 3/4. And this came with this is a number 5 Morse. I don't have anything that's a number 5, but I got to get these apart, and then I'm going to get a Jacobs, I think this is a Jacobs Taper 3 to number 3 Morse. And I figured what I'll do is I'll put this in the lathe, turn this shoulder down, and then I was going to have my son weld this up, but if it's soft enough, I'm going to bore it a little bit, tap it, put a plug in it, then I could support this thing on the press and press this piece out. So let's set up for that. I put the lathe on its lowest speed and I dialed the VFD down. I'm going to very carefully attempt to power tap this with a 1/2 NPT pipe tap so I can plug the end of that shank. Well, let's see if this thing makes a fool of me. I've got it plugged in the back. Got my nice brass piece supporting it here. Cut off a length of all thread long enough to drop all the way into the back of that. And we'll see if we're pressing or hammering at this point. Whew! Kind of went all at once, didn't it? That is one beefy shank. That's a number 5. Man, I'd love to see a number 6 or 7. A 6 is 2.494 inches diameter at the biggest point, and a number 7 is 3.27. Those are some massive, massive Morse tapers. And that looks to be in decent shape, so we will get a, like I said, I believe that's a JT3. It might be a JT4 to a Morse taper 3, and then we can put this chuck on the Acroturn lathe if it doesn't tip it over. This is really more for the Monarch. I wanted to get a chuck that's big enough to, you know, grab some 3/4 inch drills. So this will definitely do it, and it'll close down to 1/8 of an inch. So here we have it. It is a solid one-piece, almost 8-inch diameter that will hold a lathe tool. And let's see how wide this slot is, 3/4 of an inch. 3 set screws, 1.25 inch shank. So what I'm going to do with this is attempt to use it in the K&T. And to do that, I'll have to make a couple of modifications. The biggest tool that I can hold with the adapter that I made, the ER40 adapter, is 1 1/8. So I'm going to put this in the lathe, and I'm going to take a truing cut on the OD just to make sure that everything's running real nice with the shank. And then I'm going to chuck on the OD and turn this shank down to 1 1/8. I'll probably lose most of the flats, but that's fine. The ER40 system doesn't use them anyway. But let's make this OD perfectly true so that we can redress this shank to 1 1/8. This is going to be quite out of balance, so we're going to have to get the speed down a bit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my tool out far enough to work on this. Not without dialing my compound out a bit. Almost cleaned it up. Looks like just a tiny bit more it needs. This is a 5/1000 deep cut each time. 5/1000 per side. Okay, do the same for the face. I'm not going to clean up this entire face, just a wide enough band where the chuck jaws, where it'll sit flat on the chuck jaws, so it's about 1 inch off the diameter. We've got a new to me pair of 1 to 2 inch mics. I checked them against my gauge blocks and they're reading about 1/10 oversize, which I'm not going to worry about. I just wanted to verify the starting size of this shaft, which is supposed to be 1.25 inches. And this is about 1/1000 under. So I need to take this to 1 1/8. I have to go with a lower speed because I can feel the lathe loping under that imbalance. So we're at about 235, 1 inch, 235. Let's take a little heavier cut. One inch 180. Half wondering at this point if my high-speed steel cutter might give me a better finish. I'm running such a slow speed. Let's give it a try. I'm going to run out of clearance on the tool post. It is giving me a better finish though, which is a shame. I'm within 15 thousandths of 1.125. I'm going to take 10 off and check it again one last time. Exactly 5 away. About 6/10 under, which is fine for me. I'm going to put a little chamfer on that now. Okay, so this is my adapter collet system that uses the ER40 to 30 taper shank. I have a lathe tool in here with a brazed carbide insert. It feels sharp. I'm going to try this on some aluminum first. And I've got the speed of the K&T dialed down to, on the low end of its range, about 250 RPM. I think it could stand to go a little faster than that and still not be too shaky, because this cutter is not, you know, in really good balance at all. But let's give it a try with some aluminum and see how it does. We have to do opposite hand rotation. First thing that has to come off are these ends here that were from somebody using it as a pounding block. I'm going to rapid traverse this down to the other end because kind of neat. Let's go another 20, and that'll hopefully clean up the entire surface. That's pretty neat. I had quite a serious feed there. I mean, there's a big step over because of how slow the head is going. Like I said, I think I could run the head a little bit faster, and that would equate to a finer feed. But I'm pretty pleased with that. We'll try it with some steel next. Okay, I increased my RPM to about 350. I've got a piece of railroad rail here, which is medium hard. And I've dialed in for about a 5/1000 cut, and I slowed my table speed down to 1 inch a minute. So let's try this on steel, and like I said, about 400 RPM. This might be a little thumpy for the camera, we'll see. I'm looking through the aperture that, you know, the quarter segment that's cut out of the cutter itself, and I can see what looks like a pretty good surface. Fine little wispy curls. Just checking my progress here. That's a real smooth finish, but the surface is running uphill a bit, and so it's getting a little thumpier and thumpier. I'm gonna shallow up the cut and then make a second pass. I can feel my step where it stepped up. I'm going to just take a couple thousandths of a finish cut. Cut's gotten a little heavier after that step. I'm spitting out the occasional little spark here. Yeah, that was fun. So there's quite a bit of a, you know, kind of a file feeling to that one because we had the table running at a higher speed. This, you can see it, but I mean, it just kind of feels like glass. It's really, really smooth. Harder steel also. And that cutter's probably not as sharp as it should be, but that's a nice tool to have in the arsenal for flattening and surfacing larger areas. Well, I hope you enjoyed a peek at some of the new tools in the shop. Got a chance to play with that fly cutter, and actually I have a job for that next week that my son managed to slip in here on me. So we'll talk about that next week, but it's going to involve machining a fairly heavy chunk of steel. Unusual to machine this item. That's what I'll give you a teaser about. It's not something you usually see in a mill or in a lathe for that matter, but we're going to do it. So anyway, thanks again for watching, for subscribing at Engineers Workshop. I hope you're enjoying a slight break in the heat like we are here. It's a beautiful day today, a beautiful day again tomorrow. So with that, I'll let you go. And thanks again for watching. As always, from Engineers Workshop, stay safe.